Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, we take a closer look at questions surrounding the record of the FNM's North Abaco candidate. The victim of a carjacking opens fire on his assailant. The government announces a number of infrastructural improvements for Abaco, plus the Minister of Health announces new mammography machines as we commemorate Breast Cancer Month. We've got those stories and so much more coming up. I'm Paige McCartney, and NB12 starts right now. And welcome once again to NB12. Free National Movement North Abaco candidate Greg Gomez has come under fire after he admitted he declared love offerings from churches as his salary, and he could not remember the names of the schools he says he taught at in the United States. These revelations come as both major political parties head into the home stretch ahead of the October 15th by-election. Our Candia Dames reports.
The FNM's candidate has faced a firestorm ever since the Nassau Guardian and NB12 decided to take a closer look into his background and also examine his repeated claims of victimization. Well, at this point, it's still a little unclear as to exactly what Gomez was doing when he lived outside the Bahamas for 10 years or so before returning here last year, August. When former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham handed in his resignation letter back in July, we got our first introduction of who Greg Gomez is.
Greg Gomez, who was one of the 4 persons who applied to the party for nomination, has spent some time in the United States of America, and he hasn't been back home quite a year yet. He has applied. I want him to be considered like the other 4 as a candidate, and my postponement will facilitate that.
4 men have applied. We have since learned that Gomez worked briefly in the administrator's office in Marsh Harbor and was placed on the 52-week job program just prior to the May 7th general election. A letter obtained by NB12 shows that Gomez resigned in July, but he has also claimed he was victimized by the PLP government. Gomez told us via telephone from Abaco yesterday that he was out of the country for several years but could not specify just how long he was gone. On his candidate's declaration form, he lists his occupation as educator, but said initially he could not remember the names of the schools where he taught in the United States.
I've taught at several schools.
Can you name them?
I can't name them at this time.
Okay, you can't. You're an educator. You've taught at schools, but you can't name.
I am currently working as a minister at this time. That's the only thing that I have for income at this time.
Gomez later called back and provided the names of 3 Florida schools. He also told us that the $28,000 he declared as his salary represents love offerings from churches because he had no job last year and is currently unemployed, although those love offerings help him take care of his family. Today, PLP Chairman Bradley Roberts told NB12 that it's strange for a candidate to declare love offerings as a salary. Roberts has dubbed the whole matter confusing, and he has dubbed Gomez the mystery candidate.
To be honest, we in the PLP can't quite figure out why he was chosen. He is not well known to residents as he has lived nearly all of the last decade out of the country. He's all tangled up in conflicting claims about what should be simple and straightforward matters, like current and previous employment. The only thing he appears to have offered North Abaco so far is a claim of victimization. But, in fact, he submitted a letter of resignation from his 52-week work employment. So really, folks in North Abaco are just scratching their heads. I think that he's just not ready for prime time.
Now, we also saw a comment from the Free National Movement on this whole matter today, but the party's acting chairman, Darren Cash, told us that the FNM has no further comments on this matter at this time. Reporting for NB12, I'm Candia Dames.
And we'll tell you about infrastructure developments on North Abaco as well as tomorrow's town meeting there a little later in news. But first, police say an armed robber crashed a stolen vehicle after being shot at by his alleged victim in eastern New Providence during the early morning traffic rush today. Our Jasmine Bonamy was on the scene. She filed this report.
An early morning armed robbery ended with this car behind me receiving bullet holes and others receiving major damage after a high-speed chase between a civilian and an armed robber. According to police, the multi-car collision was the result of a botched carjacking turned into a high-speed chase. Preliminary reports suggest a suspect attempted to steal a Dodge Magnum somewhere near the Seabreeze area, but residents say the car's owner pulled out a shotgun and fired multiple times at the robber. That's when another civilian reportedly chased the suspect through the streets in an attempt to catch him and in the process hit several other vehicles. According to Assistant Superintendent Cleophas Cooper, that chase ended at Seabreeze Lane and Fox Hill Road shortly after 8.
Right, and now this is in the initial stages of investigation, and we are now just putting all the information together as to what really happened here at this scene. We are following some significant lead.
We're told the suspect got away, but police are still investigating the details of this crime. After the incident, the force's K-9 unit and other officers were searching the area for the suspect. Police were unsure whether the robber was actually shot by his intended victim.
We know that there was an incident earlier, which the police is now investigating.
At the scene, there was extensive damage to the stolen Dodge Magnum as bullet holes riddled its windshield and passenger side. This silver Honda Accord also lost its front tire after the apparent impact from the collision.
We know that of one person, but we're not sure of all of the persons involved.
You said it was an armed robbery. Was anybody injured? How many cars were involved?
No information of anyone being injured. We don't know how many vehicles were involved.
Meantime, several people injured in the multi-car accident were taken to hospital for minor injuries. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
The Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority is probing recent disruptions in the Bahamas Telecommunications Company's services. Cellular customers have complained for months about dropped calls and problems with data services. IRCA's investigation is in keeping with its mandate to ensure that consumers receive value for money. Vani Toot reports.
As IRCA's investigation continues into the massive network failure BTC experienced back in June, officials say they're also looking into a drop in the quality of service BTC provides to hundreds of thousands of customers. Even before the major outage, which affected thousands of landline and cellular customers for hours, BTC warned its 300,000 cellular subscribers to brace themselves for service disruptions between June and early July as it upgrades its network. 3 months later, those disruptions continue, and it hasn't gone unnoticed by IRCA.
The mass outage is obviously one part of the challenge, but the ongoing quality of service problems is another, and we are looking at it. Now, we have been engaged on an ongoing basis with BTC generally about quality of service. They provide certain statistics to us. It's not as much information as we feel is necessary, so hence we're going to put in place some rules to make sure that they are watching more of their standards. But there has been a detected decrease in quality to an extent in the statistics they've been provided.
On July 27th, BTC's CEO Jeff Houston revealed that customers could expect another 2 months of major service disruptions. He added that data is still a challenge for the company as upgrades continue. BTC is spending over $40 million on those cellular upgrades, which include changes to the texting platform and prepaid billing system, as well as the transition from the old second-generation network to the new 2G network. IRCA's Director of Policy and Regulation, Stephen Barreau, says BTC has been answering their questions about its recent challenges.
As you know, they're engaged in a massive upgrade. They obviously also have just changed ownerships. There are some organizational issues that they've been pointing out to us, and there are a number of things that they've been pointing out that they are attempting to do to resolve those problems. So we have been working on ensuring that we have the information, ensuring that what's being done is appropriate and adequate. It's part of our powers are obviously to enforce rules and to penalize where appropriate and so on. But another part of it is we do have to recognize that change and upgrades happen, and that to some extent they will present challenges from time to time.
Bureau could not say at this stage if IRCA is satisfied with BTC's explanation. He says that decision will have to be made in the context of any action the regulatory body decides to take.
We haven't gotten and reviewed. Reviewed is probably more accurate. We haven't reviewed all the information we've been given so far. So I can't say whether we're satisfied or not. I can say that we are investigating and looking at the general quality of service issues as well as the mass outage. And as I've mentioned, I can also say that we're looking at beefing up the rules a bit, because we have detected that the rules perhaps aren't as robust or as inclusive as they could be in relation to what they're required to provide.
Once consultation ends for Cable Bahamas Limited's proposed price increase, Bureau says IRCA will then tackle the issue of quality service. He says there's a lack of rules and standards in place for network and service providers in the Bahamas. IRCA plans to change that by implementing new rules so that there is a clear and accepted standard of service that companies like BTC and Cable Bahamas are required to provide to the public. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.